Glad we're finally getting Bob Cooney on the show. I've been a fan of his work since the 1990s when he began covering the Philly sports scene for the Daily News. And then he's done some, on-air radio work in recent years. Let's get it going, Bill.
Let's get to it. Let's welcome Bob Cooney to Philly Pressbox Radio. Bob, welcome.
Bill and Chet, how are you guys doing?
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Great to see you, Bob. Deal. Merry Christmas. I love the background. That looks great, man.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's all over the house. Can't escape.
Well, Bob, thanks for joining us. We're going to talk lots of Sixers with you, but we need to get your take first on the Eagles drama before we hear from Fred Barnett later in the show. What do you think of this apparent A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts rift, if you want to call it that, and Brandon Graham airing that dirty laundry on the radio Monday night? How big a concern is all this?
Well, it's funny. You get on the radio and look how things just come out of your mouth, right? Brandon Graham probably, and he did. He kind of wanted to backtrack on some of the things that he said. But I look at it a couple of ways. I was there on Sunday at the game, and you could hear people in the stands saying, throw the ball. He's wide open. That's how blatantly obvious it is from the stands of what Jalen Hurts may be missing in his progressions, whatever it may be, however it's going. So, is it a concern? Sure it is. I mean, I know they're 11-2. I know they've won 9 straight. We all do. But when A.J. Brown is asked, what do you need to do better? I loved what he said today. He said, I said passing because we have the MVP running the football. So what's not working right now is the passing game. No problem with that. No problem there at all. Jalen Hurts comes out tonight or this afternoon and says, look, that's the way I play. Look at my numbers. And I'm paraphrasing. He is a winning quarterback. He goes, I win. You might not like the way it looks, but I win. I don't like the way it looks with Jalen Hurts. I really don't. It seems like he's missing an awful lot of things, and it also seems like he's a little hesitant, guys. He's afraid to pull that trigger. And, can that easily be gotten out of? Maybe. We talk about in life, we form bad habits, right? Well, guess what? That happens in sports. I've been around sports a long time. I remember talking to Lou Williams one time and going into a locker room and shaking my head after practice. And he's like, what? I said, dude, you are in the worst habit of pump faking every time you get the basketball. He goes, I know, I can't get rid of it. I'm trying. But there's just bad habits that are had. And right now, I think my opinion is Jalen Hurts is in a bad habit of not being able to pull the trigger on stuff that seems to be open.
And it's funny, Bob, because last year, at the end of last year and everything that was going on, and even early in this year, it was too many turnovers. Hurts isn't protecting the football. Now he's overprotecting the football. At the end of the day, still getting wins.
Yeah, and that's the key thing, right? And it's funny because they go on drives and he'll pull out a run that you say, wow, 3rd and 12, and he escapes and he gets a run for 15 yards, first down. Okay, in the grand scheme of things, isn't that what you want? It is. There's no question about it. But I think it's the eye test with us, right, guys? Bill and Chet, you guys watch it where he goes back and it's just constant look, scramble, throw out of bounds. And then we see the all-22 a day or two later, and there's guys wide. A second play of the game, A.J. Brown was wide open. Yeah. And for him not to be able either to see it or want to pull the trigger, yeah, that's a concern. But like an argument I had with one of my friends, it's, look, he's like 32-9 over his last 41 games or whatever crazy number it is. You'll take that pretty much any day of the week, right, guys?
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, we love watching Saquon Barkley, of course. He's having a record-setting season. But his success, I'm thinking, is a factor in why the passing game isn't what we expected it to be. You rely maybe a little too much on Saquon to get it done.
Sure. Look at the numbers. I did them the other day. I think out of the 13 games this year, Jalen Hurts has only thrown for over 200 yards 7 times. 6 times he's thrown under 100 yards. And you're looking at his attempts. They're 18, 20. It's that balance that Philadelphia has always wanted. Run the ball more. Well, now they are. Now it's, he's got to pass better too. So, but look, I state it this way, guys. I don't argue with people that are upset about this. I don't go on you're crazy. They're 11-2. Why are you complaining? No. What do you do in sports? You always look for perfection. You're not going to attain it, but you always want to look for it. And right now, the passing game, in my opinion, is far from perfect. It can be improved upon. And if you do that, I think, I don't know how much better the running game can get, but it makes the running game probably that much better.
Yeah, it just worries me with all this. And we talked about this the other night, Chet and I. The fact that Brandon Graham put this out in public bothers me more than what he said. That's a whole issue in itself, I guess. But I don't want to see the Eagles come out going to be against the tough Steelers defense and start throwing the ball over the place and then throwing interceptions.
Yeah, no, you can't have careless football. And you're absolutely right about that. But here's the one thing that bothered me, Bill. The other day after the game, everybody talked about what A.J. Brown had to say in the passing game and all that. Jordan Mailata said something that really dug deep with me, and it has been all year long. And he said, I think the reason teams are on to us when we come out offensively and they're not scoring in the first quarter and they're slow offensively is because teams are showing the Eagles things that they hadn't shown on film before. My thing is, I don't care. You have Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, a great offensive line, and Jalen Hurts. Why aren't you taking the game to them? Why are you reacting to what they're showing you? I think the Eagles offense should be the one that's the one showing, make the defense react to you. That's the team you should be. And so that's just the little concern that you have there. And look, they're 11-2, 9 in a row. It's a great football team. But there's things that can be better. And the thing that we're talking about now is what mostly can be better.
We'll get back to the Eagles if we have time at the end, but we got to get to the Sixers, Bob. This has certainly not been the season that we expected from them. We're well aware of Joel Embiid's injury history. Daryl Morey and Elton Brand are certainly aware of that also. So why the heck did they feel the need to give him a 3-year extension totaling some $193 million at a time when his knee was nowhere near 100%?
Yeah, I go back and forth with that. My feeling is, and what I said when I was on the air before this happened, I'm not going anywhere with Joel Embiid. I'm not trading him. I'm not looking to get rid of him. I'm riding it out. If Bob Cooney's the GM of the 76ers, president, whatever title you want to give me, that's what I'm going to do. You've come too far with him with this. You're not going to get much. I shouldn't say much. You're probably not going to get what fans think you could get for him anymore because of the injury history. I think you ride it out. You try to build around him. You hope that you can get goodness going into a playoffs. And they have had that. They have taken him to a playoff healthy, and then he breaks his face. And then he, gets Bell's palsy. And then like crazy things happen with Joel Embiid. And it's happened since I was covering the team. The guy is unfortunate. He plays through injuries. God bless him for that. But he just gets so many damn injuries that it's hard. Now, here's the thing, guys, too. Like Bill and Chet, you guys will know, and you'll feel it 10 games from now, because here comes the conversation of, man, they haven't played together yet. You haven't seen the big three play together yet all that much. They don't have the rotation down. You don't know how deep your bench is. And I think they have a deep bench if they're fully healthy. That's going to start to come about, 10, 15 games, and then it's going to be, we don't know who they are because they haven't played together. And it's the shame of it all. But you guys saw Embiid play on Sunday, right? He looked really good. He did, really good. And today in practice, they were showing some one-on-one stuff that he did against Paul George, against Tyrese Maxey, like unstoppable offensive stuff. So, if you're a Sixers fan, follower, fingers crossed that he can get somewhere to be almost fully healthy.
Well, they're 7-15 at this point. You say call it a quarter away through the season. They're just a smidge over. Can they recover in this and finish above the 6-7 spot? Are they too far down already?
Yeah, it's funny if you break it down. Like, how many games is Embiid going to play? So, say you have 60 games to go. Say something like that. So, if he plays 40, 45. Out of those 20, when he's not playing, what's the team going to go? Are they a 10-10 team? Are they a 500 team? So then you start breaking down the numbers that way, right, guys? And then it becomes, okay, when he does play, you have to be a 600 or a 650 team winning percentage-wise. Then that equates to about 44 win. So the numbers are crazy. And 7-15 does not help you a little bit. So it's going to be a struggle more so in that in past years, it was, okay, we got to see this team get together. But they also had a good record before that. Now they have a really bad record, and they still have to learn how to play together. So it's a big question, Bill.
Well, Daryl Morey changed up at least 2/3 of the roster over the summer. Some of the newcomers, beyond Paul George, do look like they have some promise. I'm talking about Caleb Martin, Yershon Yubusele, of course, the rookie Jared McCain. What is the ideal starting lineup, do you think, for this bunch, Bob?
That's a great question. And Chet, I went through this before the season even started. I wanted to see, before the season started, I would have liked to seen Oubre come off the bench, Kelly Oubre come off the bench, just because, but give him starter minutes, like play him 28, 30 minutes a game, only because I want to see that energy coming off the bench. I don't want to put all the energy out there right away. Now, McCain, he's been a surprise. I mean, quite frankly, he has been a surprise. I did not expect this much out of him. So, ideally, I guess you're starting McCain and Maxey in the backcourt. I would go with Yubusele also in the starting lineup, along with Paul George and Joel Embiid. That way, I'm bringing Caleb Martin off the bench. I'm bringing Kelly Oubre off the bench. And, obviously, you're going to have a Tyrese Maxey playing with those bench guys because he's going to play 40, 42 minutes a night when push comes to shove. So that's how I would go. The problem is, if you do have a Jared McCain, as you guys well know, and you have a Tyrese Maxey in the backcourt, there's that team that's up north that wears that ugly green color. You're going to put those two guys out to try to cover people defensively.
Yeah.
That's a little bit hard, guys, as you very well know.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Maxey, Bob, he's trying to carry this team while all these injuries are taking place. Averaging 24 points a game, not shooting particularly well, just under 41%. What's the ceiling for this guy? How good can he be? I think he could be pretty darn good.
Oh, yeah, and I think he is, Bill. I really do. I think he's really, really good. Here's the difference. You mentioned the points per game, great. You mentioned the shooting percentage, not great. Why? Because when I was covering team and you would walk in the visitors' locker room, there's a whiteboard, right? And their defensive breakdowns are on that whiteboard. I can guarantee that the next time I go to a Sixers game and I walk into the visitors' locker room, and if Joel Embiid isn't playing and Paul George, even if Paul George's playing, the top of that list is Tyrese Maxey.
Sure.
Make him do this. Don't let him do that. And that's what teams are concentrating on. And that's really hard. For a 6'2" guy in the NBA, I don't care who you are, to carry a team is really, really hard. You have to be a superstar. He is so much better. And it's obvious that when Joel Embiid and a Paul George or whoever it may be are on the court, things come so much easier because defenses aren't paying as much attention to him. It's like I had a conversation last year with Marcus Morris at a Sixers gala, and we sat and talked off the record for a while. And it was funny. He said to me, he goes, I want to tell you something. I'll tell you what the easiest thing I've ever done in the NBA and the toughest thing I've ever done in the NBA. He said the toughest thing is to guard Joel Embiid. He said the easiest thing is to be on his team and be on the floor with Joel Embiid. And he said, look, I've played with all the superstars in the league. He said, I'm being honest with you that is the hardest and the easiest things to do.
All right. Hey, Phillies talk. With the Mets inking Juan Soto to that massive $750 million contract, the Braves losing Max Fried, but probably getting healthier next year. Where does that leave the Phillies? What sort of moves might they make? Apparently, they're not going to trade Alec Boehm now. At least that's what they say. They did get a semi-reliable closer in Jordan Romano if he's healthy. He had an injury-plagued 2024. The outfield probably still needs an upgrade. What do you see them doing over the next couple of months?
This is interesting because if you hadn't run it back last year, then maybe this year you're like, okay, they have a really good team. They had the best record in baseball for many, many, months of the season. Why not run it back? You had the best team. Always adding pitching, whether it's bullpen, whether it's starters, that's great. And with Romano, okay, elbow surgery last year, that kind of obviously concerns you. But maybe it puts bullpen pieces into different places or whatever. I don't see anything huge going on, although I'd like it to. I didn't like going into last year that they had so little pop in 2 out of their 3 outfield positions, in Brandon Marsh and in Rojas out in center field. Yeah. Yep. That 2 out of 3 outfielders not having any pop at all is concerning. And you weren't sure about Castellanos, coming off of the year that he had. So I would be surprised if they made a huge move, but I do think, guys, that it's kind of warranted. I think they need to bring a bat or a big pitcher in. I do think a big move has to be made with this team. And, there's not holes, but there are adjustments probably that need to be made. And maybe you guys agree or not, but that's kind of where I sit.
Yeah, and I think, Bob, one of the things that gets me is more philosophy. The long ball, everybody hitting long balls doesn't work for them. When it gets down to the tough pitching, it doesn't really seem to work for anybody, although Freddie Freeman might disagree. But for the most part, they hit bombs all season long, and when it gets tough, they can't put a rally together.
Bill, you bring up such a good point, and I brought this up months ago, and this is crazy. But the three of us can remember this, okay? We can remember the late 70s when the Phillies were winning 100 games and Danny Ozark was the manager, and you had Mike Schmidt and Greg Luzinski and Gary Madison, Steve Carlton, and this crazy Larry Boa, but they couldn't get over the hump. So what did they do? They bring in this 36-year-old guy that all he does is get his bat on the ball and get on base and hit 300 and set the tone for the Schmidts, for the Luzinskis, for those guys to be able to be even better than they were, right? Yep. I swear that's exactly what this Phillies team needs now. Go all the way back to 1980, take it forward to 2024. Not that there's a Pete Rose out there, guys, but I think they need a guy that just gets his bat on the ball all the time and gets on base and doesn't have to hit home runs. There's not a lot of them in Major League Baseball now because, Bill, as you said, everybody's looking to hit home runs. But, man, if you can find that guy, I think it makes this team just so much better. And Trey Turner's not that. I was hoping he was, but he's just not that. Somebody that can just get on base an awful lot.
Bob, you're a little younger than us, so you didn't see Dick Allen or Richie Allen, as he was known then, in the mid-'60s like Bill and I did. We're old farts, but we are so glad to see him in the Baseball Hall of Fame. What's your reaction to that?
Phenomenal. And I have friends that have been on a committee to try to get him in, and you guys probably know who he is. But, friends that just wanted to see Richie Allen. And, when they brought him back, guys, you would remember, I want to say it was like 1976-ish.
Yeah.
Remember when he was older, they brought him back? Yep. And I remember my dad telling me, and I was a kid, but my dad telling me, this was the man. Like Richie Allen was a great baseball player. And obviously that was the end of his career, but yeah, it was long deserved. And if you look at, he kind of resembles Ryan Howard in that he had a 5-6 year span where, my God, did he own Major League Baseball, right? And I'm so glad to see that rewarded. I'm so glad that all the people around here that have put so much time into trying to get him in, that they've been rewarded also with him finally getting elected.
Yeah, Bob, I tell you, as kids, you mentioned Ryan Howard. That's exactly what I was going to say. There was a period of time where Ryan Howard's at bats were can't miss TV, right? You walk through the room, you got to stop because Howard was at the plate. That's how Richie Allen was when we were kids, for sure.
Yeah, and like my dad would tell me that the ball coming off of Richie Allen's bat was like nothing you've ever seen. Yeah. And, he's talking from going to games and on. He was like, even an out was really hard hit. It was like watching when the Phillies, who was that starting pitcher that they threw out there so many times this year, making $18 million? Why can't I remember his name? But anyway, I went to see him.
Met.
What's that?
The former Met.
Yes, exactly. So I take my family to go see him pitch against the Astros or something. He gives up like 11 runs in 4 innings, and even the outs were as loud as could be. And it reminded me of my dad talking about Richie Allen, that no matter what, when he hit the ball, it was something you heard everywhere.
Bob, we only got a couple of minutes left, believe it or not. So what I'm going to do is going to pretend it's like the first quarter Eagles offense and hit you with 3 and out. So here we go. Number 1, Eagles-Steelers Sunday. It's a huge game all of a sudden, given the off-the-field drama. How's this game going to play out Sunday?
I feel confident. I feel confident for the Eagles. I do. I think they know, all right, we have to do some things a little better. Jalen Hurts, they got to run some slants. They got to get him comfortable early on and go from there. Pittsburgh's a good team, but I see it being like a 30-17 Eagles win.
I would take that. Number 2, you note in your profile on X that you spent 25 years working for the greatest sports section ever at the Philly Daily News. I bought it pretty much every day in the 1990s and 2000s. What was so special about the Daily News?
Let me see. I'm gonna forget some names here, but let's go like Ray Didinger, Stan Hochman, Phil Jasner, Rich Hoffman, Sam Donnellan, John Smallwood. Let's just go down the line. Ted Solari, God rest his soul, who just passed away, a little bit ago. And it's just the amazing Pat McClune and Mike Rathod, who oversaw everything while we were there. I still keep in touch every day with a lot of those guys, and man, it was such a special time.
I agree. Number 3, Bob, a few years ago, let me see if I can find the picture. During your time at 97.5, you hosted the show Beers with Bob, talking sports over a beer or two. So let me ask you, do you have a favorite beer or style of beer?
Cold. It's funny. Like we all went through the phase of drinking, light beer and stuff like that. When you go out and you have the light beers and all that. When I was covering the Sixers, I got a new editor, and she was very much a beer snob. So whatever city I would go to, she would look up the best IPAs in that city and send me a text or whatever. So I am an IPA guy, but I am not a beer snob at all. I will, like I said, if it's cold, it's me.
I'm not an IPA guy. I'm more of a wheat beer kind of guy, but I just cracked open a Sam Adams OVP. This is a oaked vanilla porter, and it's an exclusive. It's only part of their winter variety pack. So you get like 12 beers, 4 different varieties, and that includes this one, which is pretty good. So yeah, I'll try anything as well.
Try anything. Pacifico is my new go-to.
Okay.
Give it a try.
Hey, Bob, before we let you go, and I know you're retired most of the time now, but you still do a little freelance work. Where can people follow the things that you're doing? You still on the social media platforms?
Yeah, so I'm still on social media at Bob Cooney 76 is my Twitter account. Working some things out. I had a non-compete from when I got done with radio, or they got done with me, however you want to put it. But so yeah, I got some things in the work. Probably after the new year is when I'll be able to say something of where I'll be and be able to elaborate on that. But until then, I'd love to be with you guys as much as possible.
You are welcome to come back anytime, Bob. We'll definitely be in touch.
Absolutely, guys. You know where to find me. I'm always here.
Sir.
All right, Bob. Appreciate you. Go Birds.
Bill and Chet, thanks so much. Really had fun. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Take care.
You got it.